which have their own stance. But I think it's a very subjective matter, and methodology of teaching Lexis is something which can work in a certain setting. Now methodologies and the notions about teaching Lexis in somewhere in Europe might be different from what it is in Saudi Arabia. So it's something which keeps on changing every now and then, and you have your own rights to see how something is working for you in your class, and you can compare it how it deals with CELTA and other language schools as well. So coming back to the content itself, first of all I would like to start with language analysis, as was mentioned. So what does language analysis involve basically? It involves precise breakdown of meaning, pronunciation and form. So when you're breaking down language, you have to consider its meaning, its pronunciation, its form, and its use. Sometimes people confuse the meaning with use, but these two are not necessarily the same thing. For example, consider the general meaning of the word bargain. What is the general meaning of the word bargain?
You want to answer?
Yep.
Negotiate.
Yep.
Bargain,
Negotiate.
to negotiate, yeah.
Right. So is that the only meaning? Negotiate?
No, it has got many.
Like what?
Yes, say it out, please.
Yeah, please come.
Like a low price is a bargain.
Right, something given that
It's
is
very cheap.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it can be an adjective like this.
That's right. So there is a possibility your learner might confuse the meaning. So it's important for the learner to look at the meaning and the context. He has to know whether in a given context it means a price given at a discounted price, or whether it is an agreement between two people. Right. So highlight possible problems in terms of pronunciation of the word present. If you look at the word present, what kind of problems in pronunciation do you expect the learners to have? Do you think there will be any pronunciation problems? Yes, Mr.
Yeah, the stress. If you say present or present, it gives two different meanings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate that a little bit?
Like present, my father gave me a present on my birthday, for example. Or I can say, Mr. RIyadh is presenting something. Yeah, kind
That's
of
right.
presentation.
So
something
basically,
like that.
if a student puts the stress on the wrong syllable, if he puts the stress on the first syllable where he's supposed to put on the second, it can actually change the meaning. For example, consider a student coming to your class and saying, "Teacher, I want you to present me." Do you think this is the right word to use in this context?
No.
Because present in this context means a verb, and the present we're looking for is the adjective, right? Okay. What problems might the learners face in using the word bargain, use? So as I clarified before, meaning and use can differ. So what problems can they face in using this particular word? Yep.
Pronunciation can be bargain or bargain or
we obviously dealt
maybe a
with
bit confusing. Sorry.
Right, we dealt with the pronunciation problem.
Okay.
So we're just dealing with the possible problem with the use of this word. How think in terms of collocation, for example, or register. Any possible problems there? Okay, so basically a student might say to you, I had an advantageous bargain. Advantageous. So do you think this is grammatically incorrect to say advantageous bargain? No, it's not. It's correct grammatically, but the use itself, the collocation, does it make sense? What should it be? For example, it should it could be a good bargain, a nice bargain, worth a bargain. So the problem could be in the register, in the collocation. Then there could be another issue with the formality. Do you think it's advisable to use this word in a formal setting? Can you use this word in a formal setting?
The word bargain?
Yep.
You can.
Yep. So the register, you mean to say it's a neutral register word,
Yes, it is neutral.
where it can be used in many different contexts.
Yeah,
But there are some words like buddy, for example. Can you use the word buddy in a?
That's informal.
Yeah, that's informal. So these are the aspects of the word that you need to consider carefully. Are there any structural issues with your students? That your students might face in the aforementioned word. Any structural issues with the word bargain? Using it as a noun or using it as a verb? No? Think about it. You can be in pairs and try to discuss this question in pairs. Can you do that? Any structural issues?
That's a bargain. It's a good deal. Yeah. So it could be used to both. But if you ask a question, can I bargain with you? Using it the same way. Can I bargain? Can I negotiate? Okay, so can I bargain? So the same word is noun.
Yep. More on those lines.
No problem.
Yeah, so anything else you want to respond here? Yeah. Okay, guys, so anything you came up with? Structural issues?
Same word can be used in different form.
Okay.
In a sentence.
This can be problematic.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. There could be problem with the spelling. A student might misspell the word, or think about a student saying, for example, "Did you make any bargain? Did you make any bargain?" What's wrong with that? Yeah, because it's countable noun, and he's using any in there, which doesn't belong there, of course. No. Okay. Right, so next we come down to eliciting. So do you think it's advisable for you to say a word directly to the students, to tell them what it is, and then ask for the definition? Or you provide the definition, or use a variety of different ways and get them to say the word?
Yeah, right. So you elicit from the students themselves, so you do less work initially and it gets them thinking.
Excellent, fantastic. Yeah, so basically, what is eliciting? It's just another way of saying, ask your students. Don't just tell them the word. Ways of eliciting. I'll just try to close it down a little bit and ask you, what do you think are some of the ways of eliciting?
Image.
Showing images, all right?
Yeah.
Visuals, okay. And?
Using describing words.
Okay, right. Synonyms?
Yeah. Real objects.
Real objects, realia?
Realia, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Synonyms, antonyms, definitions.
Yep.
Trying to make the words simple for them. If they have already known about something simple, more simple.
Okay. Okay. Nice. So here are some of the techniques that I think could be used. Bring in a realia, as Mr. Tariq pointed out, especially if you're teaching a context like clothes, or you're teaching food, that's where it can come in handy. Then you can mime the word. What kind of words can you mime? You can mime an adjective, for example, the word like terrified, words like scared, or if it's a verb, like open, close. Draw a picture. Once again, we can think about adjectives that can be drawn and shown. And you can think about nouns as well that you can draw, and different kinds of emotions. Show a flashcard. I'm sure all of you do that in your classes.
Can we not gesture it?
Yeah, sure. Miming is a part of gesturing.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Say a part of the word or initial or final letter. This is not very common, this point, which I'm referring to, which is say a part of the word or initial or final letters. You can do this when nothing else is working. When you think students might be able to get to the word if you use this particular technique. For example, if it's the word extreme, for example, tell them the first two letters of this word are EX, or the last three are EME. So.
Hangman.
That's a practicing activity.
Okay.
Comes in later. All right. Then Yeah, but I mean, I take your point in a way.
Then they can select the letters and they'll know what it is.
Yeah, if you think the vocabulary is probably easy for the students and you just report.
Like you just said, just give the first two letters. I think hangman would be very similar in terms of that.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. And then we can use sequencing, which is another technique. You know, for example, if you're trying to elicit the word computer, so tell them a set of words which belong to the same kind of setting and context. For example, tell them to list some items in the classroom. They might say whiteboard, desk, chair, and then suddenly somebody coming up and saying computer. Yeah. Using a synonym and antonym, as many of you suggested earlier. Put the word in a sentence. That's also something that you could do, I'm sure. You know, as experienced teachers, you do it in your classes as well. You know, for example, you drive to work in a computer. All right. Oh, very good idea then. All right. Encourage students to use a monolingual dictionary. You know, that's a possibility as well. But do you think it's a good idea to ask your students to use a monolingual dictionary with the lower level students?
No, at high levels only. Yeah,
Yep.
yes, that's my opinion. Yeah.
Why do you think that is the
Because
case?
they might find difficulty to understand the type of English or the standard of English in the dictionary.
Right, they might not be able to find an equivalent, you know, to the word. They might just literally translate it and find a word which has general meaning, you know. Finding the equivalent is important. So use translation as a last resort. There's nothing wrong with using translation sometimes as well. You know, if nothing else is going your way, translation can come
Sometimes,
in handy. Yeah. Especially with the lower level students, that's where... You know,
with abstract nouns.
yeah, exactly. That's a very good point with Mr. Tariq.
Like
made.
beauty, for example. How
Yeah.
can you define it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Truth.
Grade your language while eliciting. Now, that's a very important point. You know, while you're trying to elicit, especially with the beginners or lower levels. Let's say you're trying to elicit the word smartphone. Would it be advisable for you to say it's a complex device used as a replacement for a computer? Do you think that's advisable? Yeah.
No, at all.
What about saying it's a mobile phone that works as a computer? You know, that's easy. Grading your language is another part of it. If one technique fails, try another. Be prepared to show meaning. So basically, you give your best and make sure that you try a variety of different ways to convey your meaning to the student. But this doesn't mean that you become rigid and you insist on explaining the word to the student. Sometimes they might not get it. Maybe it's late Wednesday afternoon. They're all busy. They're all dull and a bit bored. They might not get it. So just leave it for the next day. They might just go and look the word up in the dictionary and then come back again tomorrow. Well, checking meaning. Now, that's another important aspect of language teaching. And it's something regarding which different people have different opinions. You know, we have something called CCQ. Other people, especially in Saudi Arabia, some people feel CCQs are not as effective as some of the other techniques like translation. Now, this is what I think, and this is what I've learned over my experience, over these few years. You can use a variety of different techniques. So just sticking to one particular technique, as mentioned in the cell tower, as mentioned in the other, EFL courses, is not advisable. That's something which I've experienced myself. It might be different for you, but related to your current setting, like in the university, do you think CCQs always help you? No, especially with the lower level students. They might just look at your face at times, and because this is the way they've been brought up, since they were kids. Their teachers never really, use this kind of methodology with them. So they might just get confused using too many CCQs. With higher level students, what can be done here is that you can ask them to construct sentences using the taught items, the taught Lexis, which can be a bit more of a challenge for them and something which can, make them think about higher level language. Now consult the stronger students in the class and elicit equivalent words in L1, right? So once you give them a concept, you teach them a word, then you might ask or nominate one of the stronger students and tell him, to give an equivalent word to the other learners, But obviously you have to be a bit careful in that. you have to make sure the learner you're consulting is up to that level, and he will give an equivalent word. Or if you yourself, your language awareness of that language is up to that standard, you might provide them with that word yourself as well. Make your CCQs more effective. Now what that means is asking closed-ended CCQs, where the answer of the question will be either yes or no. Information questions are normally not used, while asking CCQs. Another kind of question, another kind of CCQ, which I personally didn't come across when I was doing my CELTA, is a discrimination CCQ. It's a kind of a CCQ where students are given two pictures of the word that was just taught, and they're asked to choose one of the pictures. I'll just show you an example. Now this picture is for the word doubtful, to check the meaning of the word doubtful. So you might just ask the students, which of the two seem doubtful? See? Another way of checking meaning. And of course, one more thing that you have to be careful about or consider while you're teaching or checking meaning is you can extensively check for the meaning, pronunciation, form, and use of the word that you've taught. But that doesn't really mean that you have to do this all in one class. No, you can't do it because you don't have enough time, right? So it goes back to lesson planning and lesson assumptions. When you're making a lesson plan, just see what the strengths and weaknesses of your students are. Do you think they'll not be able to determine the use of a word, meaning of a word, whether they'll struggle with a certain form of pronunciation? So depending on that, construct your CCQs and language checking concepts. The 6 steps to success, the sequence of teaching vocabulary. So, according to the textbooks and standardization of how vocabulary is taught, vocabulary is divided into 6 different steps, according to how they should be taught. The first one is presenting the word, of course, using an appropriate technique, miming or using a picture or whatever. Then the second one comes into play, which is eliciting. Eliciting is when, of course, you extract the information from your students. You just don't tell them. And then if eliciting doesn't work, you just feed the word to them. You just tell them either in L1 or in English. Concept check is the next stage. We check that all the students have understood so far by asking concept check questions and other techniques that were mentioned earlier. And the fifth step to teaching vocabulary is drilling. So you drill the word with the students. First you do it chorally, like you say the word and the entire class repeats after you. Then you pick on certain students and ask them to repeat the word again. And finally, you can write the word on the board and highlight the grammar and pronunciation. Highlight the number of syllables, the stress, and the meta-language, the structure, whether it's a noun or an adjective, whatever. Yeah, this is interesting, but this is where I'd like to involve you as well. What practice activities do you normally use for your students? Think of this in terms of levels. Do you think same vocabulary activities can be used for beginners and advanced at the same time?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, so what activities?
Hot seats.
Hot seats.
Yeah.
Okay, could you share it with us?
Well, you split the class into 2 groups.
Okay.
Each group is assigned a captain. They then choose someone to come to the board. They're then facing their group. You write a word on the board, and they have to use describing words.
Great.
To try and get the team member to guess what the word is.
Well, that's fantastic.
You can use it, but obviously you can use it for any level. It's all depending on the vocabulary you've got on the board.
Right.
So you won't put, something difficult for pre-intermediate level.
Excellent. Right. Okay. Any other activities that you usually use in your classrooms?
I use the same one.
Okay.
It's very effective.
Uh-huh.
I use that same one.
Fantastic. Great.
sometimes I'll just get them to come up with another sentence. It's not really an activity, but I'll pick people, or I'll do a PowerPoint presentation, and on it, it'll have one of the students' names, and like, so Nasir, give me the, and it's a bit of fun or whatever, he's been picked, and he'll give me a sentence using,
Great idea.
but I mainly stick to hot seats.
Yeah.
It's very effective for me, plus they have a laugh, they enjoy it, and they do genuinely learn the word. Next following week, they know what it means.
Wow, that's great. So,
So
you know, there's a sense of reinforcement involved with that.
it's worked very well with level B students, which I thought it works very well.
So, good. Okay, any activities that you think will work for upper intermediate or advanced levels, and they don't really, they're not very effective with beginners level?
Yeah, put these words in sentences, meaningful sentences. Yeah, that can work for the higher levels. Yeah, but matching, for example, match the picture with or to the word or word to word. This is for the beginners.
So the closed exercises can work for advanced.
Some can work both, some are not. No. Yeah.
Great. So here are some of the activities which you can use. After you've taught the vocabulary and presented the word. The first one is underlining. It's an activity where students read a comprehension, they read comprehension activity, they do a comprehension activity, and then you as a teacher ask them to underline, for example, 10 words or 5 nouns or 6 adjectives, whatever, and then these words obviously are the words that those students know, 10 adjectives, 10 nouns, whatever, are the words that students know from the passage. And after that, in pairs and small groups, they check the list. They check which words do I know, which words you know, and then finally, if a group or member doesn't know a word, the person or people who have underlined it, or the ones who know the word, just explain it to them, explain the meaning to other people. Another activity which can be used, and especially in the beginning of the class, it can be a great warm-up, is brainstorming. So you write the key word in the middle of the board and write new vocabulary around it. So you can use this as a warm-up, as I mentioned. Another good memory game is in my suitcase. This can work well with the beginner's level. Students sit in a circle and the teacher puts something in the suitcase. Let's say it's beginning with the letter A, like avocado, right? And then the student's left to the student to his left says avocado and book. So he adds another item to the first item. And then it moves on to the next student. He says avocado, book, car, and it goes on in the same pattern, continues in the same pattern from there. The last one is word searches. I'm sure everyone of you, being experienced teachers, you're familiar with word searches. Students have to find a specific number of words in a square of letters. You can give the students the word they must look for, or just tell them how many words they're looking for and subject. Thank you very much for attending, and if you have any questions, you may ask.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I was going to